Welcome to Cinephiles, everybody. It's a show where three movie lovers get together. We talk all things film. This is Brian. My name's Chris. This is Jamie. And we are happy to bring you first a movie that's getting tons of critical acclaim. A lot of people are talking about it. This is No Other Choice.
그래가지고 나온 게 고작 이거라고?
알아. 물줄기 자국. 그 부민 새끼들 교차 연결 섬유소 레시피. 근데 어쩔 수가 없더라고.
아니 걔네들 기계를 쓰는 거지 레시피까지 써야 되는 거 아니잖아. 아니 라인 매니저 해가지고 어떻게 이런 집에 사냐고 저 차가면 이거 누가 보면 야 완전 돈 먹고 다녔다 그러지 뒤에서. 나는 그렇게 생각 안 해. 근데 다른 사람이 그럴 수도 있다 이거지. 난 진짜 그렇게 생각 안 해. 자, 사자. 번시잖아.
So this is the latest from Park Chan-wook, who directed Old Boy and Joint Security Area back in the early 2000s, and really helped introduce South Korean cinema to the US and help popularize it here. His latest is a very interesting kind of comic thriller about a paper executive who loses his job, and after about a year of unemployment and his family is having to cut costs, resolves on kind of extreme measures to find another job. There's a potential executive position opening, and he targets who the competition will be and decides to wipe them out one by one. That could be a very intense thriller, but he kind of bungles his way through this. It's a little bit of a slapstick thriller in that way. But it is also very dark. I mean, Park Chan-wook is known for very extreme movies. So there are a couple of very extreme deaths in this movie. But mostly it's talking about capitalism and the way that capitalism forces us into corners. Automation and AI and technology eliminate jobs and kind of make us desperate and will do anything to just maintain a quality of life. Lee Brun-hyun here, the guy on the left in this clip, is a South Korean star. He's been in several Park Chan-wook movies. He's outstanding in the role. I also really love the relationship between him and his wife. They have a very kind of tender, flirtatious, kind of sexy relationship that you don't often see in movies of this ilk. You'd think they'd kind of play up the conflict between them, but they don't really do that. She's a very supportive wife, even when she finds out what he's up to.
What an interesting shot. That was a double entendre. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
you.
yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Park Chan-wook is a great visualist. I mean, he can make simple scenes like two guys drinking seem very exciting. I really enjoyed this movie. If there's one little critique, it's that I go into Park Chan-wook movies expecting a masterpiece every time, and I've loved a lot of his movies, and I'd say this one is just a smidge under a masterpiece, and so I was
What a shame.
I was just
Darn.
I was just a little bit disappointed. Like, you know, you go in, you're expecting to be absolutely blown away, and you're just kind of like whelmed. Like your expectations
not
are
overwhelmed, but whelmed.
right.
Yeah.
And
Is he the one behind Parasite?
no, that's Bong Joon-ho.
Oh, okay. What other films has Park done?
So he did Old Boy, like in 2003. Joint Security Area, The Handmaiden, which was my favorite movie of that year, and his last movie was called Decision to Leave.
Okay. All right. So must see in your opinion?
Yeah, I would say see it. If you're a fan of Park Chan-wook, see it.
Okay.
You saw it too, didn't you?
Yes, I did see it. I would agree it's whelmed, not overwhelmed, not underwhelmed, just whelmed.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why that is because
Say that. It's so cool.
is because
Whelmed.
like the beginning, very interesting, very intriguing, very engaging. The end, very interesting, very intriguing, very engaging. There's just a little bit of time in between him losing his job, it being 3 months, winter, a year, and his decision to kill the first person or try to kill the first person, that I'm like, that could have been sped up just a little, a little. And I think that's why I'm just whelmed. Other than that, like you said, the relationship between the husband and wife, brilliant. The acting, brilliant. The filmmaking, brilliant. I really like the story and how it explores corporatism, capitalism, the exploitation of employees and workers and how that affects individual people. And I do think that the character himself is really interesting because he has kind of formed his identity around his job. And a lot of us are guilty of doing that with our relationships or our friendships or our interests or our job. And I don't know that being someone who works in the paper industry needed to be his identity. I think he could have gone outside of that. And so to have that introspective is really interesting to me.
Yeah,
That's well said.
he does. I mean, it's in the title. He feels he has no other choice but to explore that avenue. He could have, become a writer. He could have done anything, but he felt that was his lane, and he had to stay in that lane. And I think that, to your point, capitalism forces us into that, and we don't have a lot of options once we make a decision.
And most movies are about existentialism, right? Which are the people who choose the other thing, to escape and to go on the unbound journey. And that's really, really, really hard and kind of rare in reality.
Yeah.
Can we just do anatomy of a scene real quick?
Yeah.
Did he drop like a shot of something in the beer?
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
a shot of
So it was like
whiskey,
a,
I think.
okay.
I think so.
So it's like a Boilermaker, like a
Yeah,
double
they
up.
called it a bomb shot, but I think
Bomb
it's like
shot.
a Jaeger bomb, anything like that, that
What-
you drop something into
Got it.
alcohol, chug it.
Double up for a buck. So why though was he? So the murderer is the guy who's bobbing his leg and thinking about it, right? Why was the guy who gave it to him so insistent on him chugging it?
He went there with he goes to into that scene trying to get that guy drunk because he's planning on killing him.
Got it.
And he's an alcoholic and doesn't want to drink, and he's trying to get this guy to drink. So very reluctantly, he eventually takes that drink.
Oh,
he,
but I
like,
thought the guy who wanted to
relapses,
kill was the other guy, who was being forced to drink.
No, the guy who's being forced to drink is doing it reluctantly because he's an alcoholic.
Oh, I see.
He doesn't want to
Okay.
relapse, but then in
Wow.
the act of trying to take somebody out,
Sounds great.
you gotta,
Yeah, you got to make
You gotta do what
sacrifices, I guess.
happens.
Yeah.
What was your rating?
I would say see it.
Okay, so we got to double see it. Up next, we have something a little bit lighter. We like to go hard and soft in this. That is 28 years later.
No,
No.
next is this thing on?
Oh, I'm sorry.
We want to
Whoops.
talk a little bit more about
I jumped ahead.
8 years. So
You missed. Then my joke didn't hit there. It was
Sorry.
supposed to be 28 years later. The Bone Temple
Is the lighter.
would be the lighter fare.
It's
We'll
not.
get to that later. All right. Is this thing on? We talked about this during the show, Saturday morning
Yeah,
show.
yeah.
This is going to be a great movie. Cannot wait. Let's take a look.
People get, hey, make yourself comfortable.
Am I okay here?
Yeah, no one's sitting here.
You're fine.
Well, how was your night?
It's pretty good. I went to a different open mic and yeah.
You know, I've been doing this for 25 years. You know what I mean? And I love it. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. But what I like about you is you're so innocent. You're not naive, you're innocent. And that's why it works. So that's good. It comes out of your head, you put it on a piece of paper, and you get up there. It's like therapy. But people can relate.
So this is the newest film from Bradley Cooper. It stars Laura Dern and Will Arnett. Will Arnett and Laura Dern are a couple. They are exploring what maybe their relationship is or isn't. Will Arnett's character, Alex, is kind of going through a midlife crisis. And it's just a really nice portrayal of relationships and love and all of that good stuff. Like, what makes a relationship work? What makes a relationship not work? What makes each individual happy and then in turn make you happy in a relationship? His midlife crisis is that he's going to be a stand-up comedian, which I don't know that I would choose that as my midlife crisis, but good for him. He has more guts than I do. And he's not necessarily bad at it, but he's also not very good at it because he's never done it before, right? So he goes on stage and talks about his life, and like that clip said, he kind of treats it like therapy.
And people laugh.
Yeah, and people laugh, and I really liked it. Like, I'm not probably going to see it again. It didn't really stick with me, but in the moment while I was watching this movie, I actually really liked it. I don't know if Brian necessarily would agree. Did
No,
you?
I absolutely agree.
I liked
I
it.
really enjoyed this. I think it's Bradley Cooper's best movie. I
would agree.
He's made 3 movies about artists who are kind of working through their issues through their art. And I've heard people say that, oh, it's unbelievable that you step on stage and you're immediately funny. Well, this is actually based on a kind of true story about
Exactly.
a British, footballer or soccer player who,
John Bridge or something. I don't
Yeah,
know
yeah.
what his name is.
Yeah,
but-
who did this? I mean, he actually went on
After a
stage
divorce or
and
during a divorce?
during a divorce,
During a
went on stage and just became a stand-up comedian, and now that's his job. He's a stand-up comedian.
Yeah.
And I like the reason why Will Arnett, from my understanding, knew about his story is that he just like randomly met him on vacation and talked to him
No
and
way.
then learned about his story, and then he and Bradley Cooper came
Oh, so
together.
this was
and
Arnett's. This is Arnett wrote
yeah,
this.
he wrote this.
Oh, wow.
Co-wrote it.
Co-wrote it, yeah.
He's so good in it. He's so relaxed and not like the normal sort of parts that Will Arnett play, which are bombastic or really funny or whatever
Yeah.
it is. He just seems chill and sort of normal. To me, it has a feel of like Silver Linings Playbook type familial. Cooper has casual things in his films. Everything's casual. It seems very realistic.
Yeah, yeah.
The
I think
writing and the acting, it doesn't seem performed or dramatic.
right. The key word I think is naturalism. Like every performance feels really lived in. The camera work is all very handheld, and he's in those scenes. And I think you're absolutely right to point out Silver Linings Playbook. I think Cooper learned a lot from David O. Russell and kind of the organized chaos of those family scenes in that movie and American Hustle as well, where
That's
it's
right.
just like you're kind of in the moment and it feels all kind of chaotic, but
That's normal. That's
yeah,
life.
right. That's life. And
Christmas at mom's house, and what are you gonna
Yeah.
do? You know.
Exactly.
I
We
think
all
we-
have our own stuff.
got
So
our
like
stuff,
it doesn't matter how you fall on the scale of like really, really chill to super dysfunctional and chaotic, you'll see yourselves in this movie.
That's
in
what makes The Bear work so
Yeah.
well. Remember
Oh,
when the
absolutely.
show
Yeah,
The
sure,
Bear? It's
yeah.
like just that chaos.
I think where maybe at the very end when he's getting into people's faces during and the song choice at the end was just a little too on the nose for me. And when that kind of stuff happens at the end, you're like, oh, just a little deflated. But so similar to No Other Choice, it was just like very close to being perfect. But I did really like this movie and think it's easily Will Arnett's best performance to date.
I would agree with that, and I agree that this is Bradley Cooper's best directorial film. Like I think one of his best choices in this movie is sticking with Will Arnett when he's on stage. He doesn't show us the audience. We are the audience.
Yeah.
So we are
That's cool.
experiencing him on stage for the first time, the second time, the third time, and we're the ones cringing or laughing or hitting the person next to us like, oh, that was funny or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's a scene where Laura Dern is watching him do the stand-up, and you're watching Laura Dern watch Will Arnett. You're watching her face and her reaction, and I think that makes the emotions more visceral and puts you more into the story.
Also, unless you're into comedy, like, and you go regularly to comedy clubs, there's a ton of amateurs who get up on stage and try it. It's open mic night. There's terrible comics everywhere, but it's those who try, right, that get a little bit better. And it's really hard. Comedy's super hard.
Yeah, he just brushes off the rejection or brushes off other comedians kind of making fun of him and telling him that he's not that great at it. But and he sticks to it because there's something about it that is cathartic for him to get up there and just talk about his issues in a way that is entertaining, but also just deeply felt. So it was really funny. I felt a lot during it, and I was really impressed with it.
What did you rate it, Jamie?
I would say see it because I don't know that everyone will love it, but I think most people will enjoy it, if that makes sense.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, see it.
All right, we got a quad pack of see-its here right off the top of the list in this episode. All right, when we come back, we'll get to that really light kids movie, The Bone Tomb, 28 years later.
The Bone Temple.
I'm sorry, The Bone Temple Tomb. One's a matter of worship, one's a matter of like an underground cemetery. What are we going to do? Welcome back. It has been 28 weeks since we were in post-apocalyptic United Kingdom trying to stay as far away from Samson as we could, but it's time to go back this time, guided by Nia DaCosta. Let's take a look.
This is a memorial to the dead.
So, was this all you're doing?
It is.
Are you Old Nick?
Old Nick. You mean Satan?
Yes. Old Nick released his demons unto the world of man. And the world of man fell before the demons.
Oh, dear Lord. Well, you get an A for casting.
So this is the direct sequel to last year's 28 Years Later. Danny Boyle gives up directing reins to Nia DaCosta. And this is hopefully the second film in a new trilogy, all set in kind of the same time period, where the rage virus has evolved over time. The story focuses on Dr. Ian Kelson, played by Ralph Fiennes, who is experimenting with Samson, this large alpha infected. And he, as we saw in the 28 years later, he shoots him with morphine darts and kind of neutralizes him a little bit. Well, Samson keeps coming back, and he kind of enjoys being neutralized. And there's a whole interesting exploration of this rage virus being treated and understood instead of just treated with rage or attacking them. He's trying to diagnose it and figure it out in a way that is very exciting and very charming in a way, and very unexpectedly emotional. There's a second story then with Spike, who's played by Alfie Williams, who gets involved with the Jimmies, a group that we saw at the end of 28 years later. And they're a group of essentially Satanists who are worshiping Old Nick and doing his bidding according to what the main Jimmy, played by Jack O'Connell, tells them to do. They are dressed as, I think, Jimmy Savile has been pointed out, that Jimmy Savile is, if you're unfamiliar with him, he is a UK DJ and TV personality who, after his death, it was basically discovered that he was a pedophile with some 300 victims, was involved in necrophilia, just a really awful human being, pretty nasty guy. And they're all, that all didn't really come out until after this would have taken place. So they didn't really know that. So they're dressed up like him in a very disturbing undercurrent that I think a lot of people in the U.S. maybe didn't get at the end of 28 years later.
So they call him Old Nick, like Saint Nick, and Saint Nick is like Satan?
Well, I think Old Nick is a term for Satan. Yeah.
Old Saint
like
Nick?
Old Scratch, that sort of thing.
Got it.
I really loved this movie. I thought it was better than 28 Years Later.
Wow.
Actually,
Nice.
yeah, maybe Jamie doesn't agree, but the style was a little bit more straightforward than Danny Boyle's, which, depending on how you felt about 28 Years Later, that's maybe a good thing or a bad thing. I didn't feel it was good or bad, just different. The acting was incredible. Ralph Fiennes is outstanding. It leads to a climax that is, without spoiling anything, one of the more entertaining things I think I've ever seen Ralph Fiennes do. That it challenges his dance in Bigger Splash as one of the coolest things he's ever done.
While channeling Voldemort while doing it.
While channeling Voldemort, also Old Nick, and playing Iron Maiden. So if
it is very entertaining.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Like I was giddy as soon as it started happening. I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe this is going on.
Sounds like a massacre.
It was amazing. It's not a massacre. It's I don't want to spoil it.
Okay, don't.
But yeah, I thought the actor Chai Lewis Perry, who plays Samson, he was very one note in the original. He's a MMA fighter. He was great in this.
Is this a prequel to like the Silmarillion? Because he looked like a Uruk-hai.
Oh sure, yeah. No, he's not. He's just a big guy.
Just want to make that clear.
Yeah, I really loved it. Jamie,
and you love horror. Let's tell everybody you're a super fan of the horror.
I mean, I'm a super fan of every genre. I don't discriminate.
But you lean horror, like you like those.
Sure, I guess.
You have an affinity for the genre.
You lean horror the way that I lean rom-com.
Sure. But I do like rom-coms.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you don't like anything else, but you always said you love horror movies.
Sure, and I feel like in this company that's an exception. But I want to know. I feel the dissent coming from Jamie, so
You feel dissent?
I'm anticipating it, yeah.
I thought you said I feel the scent. I'm like, well, you would smell the scent.
No.
Maybe both. You don't know.
All right, what do we got?
I want to preface this with I like bad movies. Okay? And I don't necessarily think this is a bad movie, and I don't necessarily think I didn't like it. However, I don't know really what the point was. I do. I know what the point was. It did move the story along. There was a plot. There were characters that you needed to see what they were doing. Like you said, Ralph Fiennes, magnetic. He stole the show, which I thought Alfie Williams stole the show in the first one.
Mm-hmm.
But That being said, when I watched 28 Years Later, and maybe I said this on the show, maybe I didn't, what I'm going to call the cold open with Jimmy as a child watching Teletubbies, I don't necessarily think we needed to then bookend it with what happened at the end of the movie. I thought that it could have been cut off like 3 to 5 minutes early.
Sure.
And so because I think that 28 Years Later could have been cut off 3 to 5 minutes early, I think that 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple could have been a movie without Jimmy. I'm sorry. I get the point of Jimmy, but I don't know that he was necessary.
Oh, I disagree. I think this is a movie that's... So the first movie was very much about, like, first movie meaning 28 Years Later, was very much about, like, the post-infection factionalism. We're all separating into different groups.
Right.
We're all angry. We're all hating each other, fearing each other. And I think this is a movie that is looking at those groups and realizing you don't necessarily need to fight them. You need to understand them, and that's how you defeat them.
True.
And
What is it trying to say, for real?
And I think it's there's a comment at the end talking about how a certain character is talking about how, post-war, and mind you, this is like an alternate reality where after 2002, none of the events have happened. They've been living in post-apocalypse since 2002. A character is teaching about world history and talks about how fascism was defeated and it never came back. And I think this is definitely a commentary on how since COVID, since the 20th century started, we've kind of segmented ourselves. We're in these kind of cultural bubbles and groups that are amplifying themselves and becoming extremist in a way, and we've all got radical opinions now. And this movie, I think, hopes for understanding. And I think that is what both with Jimmy and with Samson we're trying to do. We're trying to understand them, and then if it's negative, defeat it and make it so we have a sense of understanding. So I think that's where, for me, Jimmy is essential.
That's fair.
It's two different plot lines that are both about that intersect in the end, and I think one of the best scenes.
Yeah, I would say that's one of the best scenes for sure.
So it's your take that the zombie apocalypse movie, that involves hedonistic cannibalism, big violence, and just indiscriminate murder of humans from the zombies, from the infected, is trying to teach us that understanding equals peace, and that love will conquer evil.
I mean, this is a trend.
Am I right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that what's happening?
This is a trend in zombie movies from the first Night of the Living Dead. I mean, George A. Romero's zombie movies. The first one was, about Vietnam violence and how awful it is, and it's about racism in America. Dawn of the Dead, 1978, is about consumerism and how zombies are, consumers are basically just zombies wandering around the mall. The whole thing takes place in a mall, and people are just walking around like drones, kind of mindlessly shopping.
So my joke just turned into your PhD thesis.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Ladies and gentlemen, the cinephiles.
And just, to continue with the George A. Romero thread.
It's kind of like Frankenstein, too. It's very similar in that regard.
Similar, yes. To continue with the George A. Romero thread, though, so George A. Romero's zombies eventually evolved. In Day of the Dead, they became smarter. There was a character named Bub who would interact with a scientist. In Land of the Dead in 2005, they were commenting on the proletariat uprising against what was at the time George W. Bush's regime, and there was a zombie that was called Big Daddy that was basically Samson, who was smarter than the other zombies and kind of led a rebellion into this city. I mean, these zombie movies, yes, they're violent and yes, they're gory, but every good B movie can address a very serious political issue or social issue better than just like a straightforward movie that's trying to be political or social.
I would agree with that, especially horror movies specifically. Like, I think I'm losing the name of it, Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney. Probably has more to say about women's bodily autonomy. I always use that one as the example than any straightforward, like, dramatic movie. I feel like I felt more and learned more from a zombie movie or from Immaculate than I did Eddington.
Speaking of that,
Are you Film GPT, by the way? Do you have Ethernet plugged into your spine? 'Cause you just ripped off a crazy set of facts that really support your idea.
I have a
It was very
weirdly
impressive.
encyclopedic memory for movies, but
Clearly.
there's a great book that I'll recommend called Scream With Me. That's all about, speaking of immaculate, that's all about, it came out last year, and it's all about feminist horror and looking at Rosemary's Baby and The Omen and Exorcist and tying that into Immaculate and some of the more recent, and the first Omen, some of the more, post the eradication of Roe v. Wade and how that's working into horror that I'd highly recommend people check out because it's a great read and explores how horror can be more socially conscious than one might think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what is Friday the 13th trying to say?
Friday the 13th is a notoriously vacant movie, and even like it's not trying, like literally the filmmaker said we're not trying to do anything.
Clearly.
Like they're just, it's
Set out
just
to entertain.
It's outrage against camping. That's what it is.
It's teens having sex and killing, and in fact, I mean that movie, Siskel and Ebert did a whole campaign about how that movie is morally reprehensible, and I mean that whole series. I find that series abhorrent. Actually,
It terrified you, though.
It didn't.
It was very difficult for me to swim in lakes after that.
Oh, really? I thought it was just empty and nothing. I don't know.
But you've enlightened me. I love it.
Yeah.
Anything else on 28 Years Later? How do we rate it?
I would say see it because I'm sure that I'm in the minority here, but you're probably going to walk out of the theater with more questions than you have answers.
Okay.
And it does have a purpose. You did need to see it. You cannot skip it. It's going to move the story along.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
Great art, by the way.
I would say don't miss it, especially if you're a fan of the series and 28 Years Later.
So the only film that has a don't miss it from you today is 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple.
Yeah, I frankly
Going into this, I wouldn't have guessed that. But
yeah. I mean, I thought it was outstanding. I think it's the first great movie of 2026.
Nice. All right, here we go. When we come back, we're going to hit the Cinegift. I gave a rom-com to actually soften this up. It's not a great movie, but it's one that I always love. We'll talk about it when we come back. Welcome back. The Cinegift that I gave out was Kissing a Fool. This is a rom-com from the 1990s. It starred David Schwimmer and is it Jason Lee?
Yeah.
I loved it when I was growing up, high school age, college age. Big fan. What'd you guys think?
I enjoyed it. I really love rom-coms. I really enjoy David Schwimmer as an actor. Maybe it's just because I love Ross from Friends.
It's one of his first roles coming out of Friends.
Yeah, and I
or
think
during Friends, for that matter.
The point is to not typecast him. And a lot of people probably don't feel like he's believable as a womanizer, a popular jock,
Sports anchor.
person, sports anchor.
What up?
But I found him believable in that. What I didn't find believable in the movie was that anyone would choose David Schwimmer over Jason Lee. But that's just me.
What up, what up?
Sorry.
It's the power of the sports anchor role. All right.
It was fine. I didn't love this movie. I thought it was very formulaic. I was thinking about the formula when I was watching it, which is maybe why it didn't work for me. David Schwimmer, I don't know. I didn't buy him as a womanizer. I thought he was miscast.
What up, dude? Really?
Yeah, no, I didn't.
I thought he was a scumbag. Kind of a dumb scumbag.
Yeah, I don't know. It just didn't work for me.
A dumb bag.
I didn't buy the romance between Jason Lee and the female lead, whose name I can't remember. But I don't know. There were some funny jokes. I found it a little, I don't know, crass, I guess.
That's fair.
There were some like homophobic jokes in there that I didn't really like.
90s,
It was very much of the 90s, and I think going back to those movies when you didn't see them when they were out, it's harder than growing up with them.
Understood. Who's got next Cinegift?
I do.
Hit me, quick.
It is Bad Day at Black Rock, 1955, starring Spencer Tracy and Lee Marvin.
All right, where can people find you? We'll watch it and we'll talk about it next Cinephile.
I'm at deepfocusreview.com, and I'm on Letterboxd.
Jamie?
Also Letterboxd, Instagram, care11.com.
Care11 Plus, Care11 on the air, and care11.com. I'm Chris Arabsky, Brian Eggert, Jamie Rogers. Thanks for watching.